What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Critical Overlord here. We're going to be talking about Scream 7 in this video. This will mostly be dedicated to a theory about the film. Nothing confirmed, nothing about any sort of rumors I've been hearing about, none of that. Just a theory rooted in some stuff that has been reported, but most of it just a theory. And it is me just doubling down on what I've been talking about in countless other videos, but it seems more than likely that that is the route they're going to be taking with Scream 7. Call it predictable if you want to. Again, no one told us to engage with the narrative in this capacity. That's why I always stress calling this stuff predictable when we want to play detective with it. That's not fair to the filmmakers and the people putting together the project. I'm going to grade it on the way it's executed and if the whodunit aspect is hyped up well enough or not. But yes, this is going to be about Leslie Macher yet again. I think that Scream 7, though, in connection to Leslie Macher, even more importantly, is going to be revealing Roman Bridges' accomplice. That is something that I can see happening, and that's something I can see being done with someone like Leslie Macher. Scott just said that his role is supposed to be small, but it can still be significant. Nothing more significant than finally making sense out of Roman's ability to seemingly move quickly in Scream 3. He moved quicker than any other Ghostface. All roads lead back to Leslie Macher for me, who secretly you can say is Sidney's new best friend character, potentially going to be played by Anna Camp. Ever since Stu died, Leslie has had it out for Sidney because that's still her brother. She still loved him. Sidney's actions caused a downward spiral for not only her but her parents. Gale's exploitation of the situation made it worse than the Stab franchise, which Leslie is against. And Leslie, while faulting Stu, as she should, also blames Sidney because in her mind, none of this would have happened had Sidney just died. So she's just as delusional as the other killers. But during her reveal, we find out she even assisted Roman during Scream 3. She was the lady who called the station looking for information on Sid. She was the one who destroyed the file room, two events that Dewey told us about in Scream 3 when him and Gale had coffee or whatever. Leslie was the one who killed Angelina. She chased Sidney on the Stab 3 set with Roman. Roman, of course, took the fall for everything, and Leslie continued her life as a single mom to Vince. Time goes by, she still hates Sidney, but develops this weird admiration for her as well. She reads Sid's book, Out of Darkness, starts to understand her struggle, looks up to her life because Sidney has everything Leslie has ever wanted, which is peace. And she slowly starts to forgive Sid a bit for what she did to Stu and how what happened that night and everything that transpired with her mother and how that connected with Billy Loomis, how that just spilled over into ruining her life. She starts to slowly forgive her. Now, I want to also say this. Leslie is placing some of her anger at Billy Loomis towards Sidney because Billy isn't here, but Sidney was Billy's girlfriend. And for the record, Leslie and the Machers' lives have just been absolute hell ever since Stu died in this theory. And in Scream 5, you could say that after Vince is killed and Sidney and Gale manage to help the Carpenters kill Amber and Richie, Leslie forgives Sidney completely since helping bring down the two responsible for killing her son, in her eyes, is kind of like making up for killing Stu. But she didn't forgive Gale because Gale went on to still continue exploiting. She did yet another book, and who knows what else between 6 and 7 that still leads to Leslie having some sort of animosity towards Gale. Now, Leslie, wanting to make up for years of hating Sidney and her part in Scream 3, moves to Pine Grove, which we know is the town in Scream 7 allegedly, pretends to be a woman named Jessica. She has a son who you could say ends up not being really her son. This could be someone she's blackmailing for one reason or another. The blackmailing of the kid, of course, is just supposed to be in relation to the fact that we know that this neighbor friend to Sidney is supposed to have a son in Scream 7, so maybe this isn't really her son. She's just blackmailing the person. Now, Sidney, I would argue, has never met Leslie. She doesn't know what she looks like or anything. And anyone who thinks that that's impossible, to that I say, please stop believing that your world experience is most people's experience. Leslie very well could be off social media, doesn't have much presence online or anything due to how her family was treated following Stu's demise. So it's very possible that Sidney never met the woman, and if she did, she probably was looking a lot different. And Leslie, again, has been laying low because the Machers have been attacked at every turn since what happened in Woodsboro all those years ago. Anyway, while getting to know Sidney over the last years or two, Leslie tries to get Sidney to cut off Gale Weathers. Sidney defends Gale at every turn and refuses, causing Leslie to snap. But there's more. Leslie also tried to make a pass at Mark once, and he shut her down. He, of course, hid this from Sid since these two ladies are supposed to be friends. So Leslie just completely snaps, mostly because Sidney won't cut off Gale, and to Leslie that means she was wrong to ever forgive Sidney, because Sidney is just as greedy, undeserving, and phony as Gale is in Leslie's eyes. Leslie doesn't understand how Sidney can claim to stand for so much in her Out of Darkness book, but align herself with the likes of someone like Gale, and you see the route I'm going. So we're taking some of this off of just being about anger towards Stu and what happened with Stu, and now we're coming down the pathway still of a parasocial relationship, because Leslie has done nothing but had a bizarre parasocial connection with Sidney for over 20 years, and this is going to be its boiling point. So she's still somebody who is obsessed with Sidney Prescott, but for a variety of different reasons. And I think that would be a cool narrative to explore during her reveal, when it's not just completely correlated to someone like Stu Macher and being upset because you killed my brother 30 years ago. Maybe in the midst of these 30 years, you managed to forgive Sidney, but then you try to befriend Sidney and make her cut off other people in her life that you think don't deserve her time, but she wouldn't do that. So then you're like, hey, maybe I was wrong to forgive this woman. This is still the woman responsible for the demise of my brother. She's responsible for, well, you can put some blame on her for the demise of your son and all these different things. And now it's culminated because you think that Sidney Prescott doesn't deserve the peace that she's worked so hard to attain. You want to show her that she really is an angel of death. And this is your way of taking out your frustrations with your own parasocial obsession on Sidney Prescott by doing a Ghostface killing spree in her new town. That is what I can see transpiring in Scream 7. That is what I wouldn't mind seeing if you go down the Leslie Macher route. I just think it should be a little bit meaty and not just solely connected to, I'm mad that you killed my brother 30 years ago. I think Leslie needs to be somebody very rich, somebody with a story, somebody who, again, has had an obsession, admiration, hatred, a lot of emotions towards Sidney. And we learn all of these things during her reveal. Now, connecting her to what happened in Scream 3, you don't have to do that. You can eliminate that if you want to. I just feel that it's clearly obvious something about Leslie is coming. Something about Leslie is coming. If it doesn't come, that's fine. It just feels like that's what they are about to do. And if you, again, want to argue it's predictable, I can't take that away from you, because I could say it's predictable too. But again, they didn't tell us to engage with their filmmaking process in this capacity. This is part of the fun of it, though. Theorizing, speculating, coming up with ways to predict what they're going to do before we see the movie. That's the whole fun of this for people like us who are not necessarily going to be shocked by these films all the time. The shock factor, I think, is completely gone. There's nothing you could do at this point that would shock me other than, yes, successfully executing a narrative where Stu Macher is alive and it's competent and has very little plot holes. That would probably be the only thing left the Scream franchise could do that would shock me. You guys can let me know what you think about all of this down in the comment section below. If you haven't already, of course, make sure you subscribe, turn on post notifications so you never miss a video. In the description, I'll have links to all my social media accounts. I am on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can message me there, of course. Let me know any movies, news, or reviews you'd like me to cover in the future. And with all that in mind, guys, I will see you in the next video.